All right, we can dive into Nightcrawler here. We'll talk about the game, the features, and then take a look at the reactions we're getting for it. So this is the teleportation effect. If I click here, wherever I click, we teleport to that location, and you'll see like the bats shoot out towards the direction you're going to teleport. And then you also see that the light that I have will actually travel to the teleportation uh, point, and then that actually makes it so it's less jarring because we actually shoot the player like a projectile to that point with the light attached to him, and then we just sort of soften the camera as it follows. So it's working pretty well, liking it. Then we have this nice little bounce effect, so the player is a ball while traveling in the air until they land on something flat. So pretty great for like a climbing game. You can see this should be fun enough, if this is the type of game you wanted to make. And so now I have to think, do I want to make a game? And that's going to be in Series 3, whether this makes it in there or not. I feel like it should because I do love this teleportation effect. What else? So if you land in the rocks, you die. Um, Currently no cooldown or anything on the teleportation, but you cannot use the arrow keys or anything to move, and that's would be considered a part of the challenge right now. So you have to stick your landings perfectly, and then you have to make your next jump from wherever you end up. So, all right, let's take a look at the reactions. So let me refresh. We are doing really well and breaking records once again because I think in my last record was around 50, and that was after 48 hours or something like that. So we are already up to 63. We have 5 comments, and they're really good comments. And these aren't even, I think I only replied to one maybe, but everyone is liking it. One suggestion to add a grapple to the game, which I've considered. Actually, it just feels like it would be a natural sort of thing to have. Teleport, grapple, swing, teleport, grapple, right? It's like, yes, that would be a very happy marriage indeed. So we may look at adding a grapple in Series 3. So that will be fun. But I mean, so one of the things I wanted to talk about here was why am I getting such great reactions for this effect? I think my other teleportation effect was fairly similar in this. I don't know if I have it. I don't have it here, but it was very similar. But I think what it comes down to is the title. This teleportation mechanic slaps or naps. So that's a little bit grabby. So that's going to get a few more views, and and I think this may be the biggest contributing factor towards getting people to like it and comment, especially the comment side of things. So I think your title is super important, and wordsmithing it until you've got something that people are just gonna to jump on, right? They want to pounce on whatever it is that's in this. So that's that. And what else do we have? We have the retro. So some of the takeaways here coming out of this project and this series. No longer going to track actual inside of project milestones because it's too messy. I can't even keep track of it at a high level. So whatever. One of the other big takeaways here was that I added jumping, I added double jumping, I added wall grabs, and I did all this stuff, and I shouldn't have. Like I was supposed to be making a teleportation demo just to get that super good fun feeling teleportation effect. And while doing it, I'm like, well, I'm making a demo of sorts to show off, and so I need jump, I need double jump, because these would be things you probably would have in a game like this, and that was a mistake. I just needed to stick to the teleportation aspects. Even the wall grab was especially sort of derailing my efforts here. Like I set it up so when you hit a wall, it would actually grab onto the wall so that you could then jump or double jump or even teleport off of that wall. And that was just going too far in the wrong direction. And I realized that about halfway through, and then just started cutting all of that because all of those features are game specific. I can make any game with the teleportation effect. Maybe it has jump, maybe it doesn't. And so I had no business when creating a toy adding some of these other things this early. And so it's amazing how easy it is to go off track on a game. I think you have to keep stepping back and going, am I working on all the right things? What am I doing here? I'm building a toy. Should a toy have all these things, all these bells and whistles? Does it need it? Or should I be focused on one particular thing? And you just have to keep asking yourself that as you're, whether it's on a big project or even a small one. And one of the other things about that is that doing all of those extra things, jump, double jump, the wall grab, that all takes time, which is time you're not spending on making your core feature, the one thing you want to be fun, juicy, and nice. And so it's not helpful to have all those other little mechanics if you're not getting the time you need in the one that's most important. So that's kind of huge, right? To really focus your attention on the things that matter. All right, so these last two are probably the most important out of all the retrospective items. What I ended up doing was just setting a goal for myself to beat my previous high score on Reddit, which was 50 likes. And what I found was is I kept asking the question, am I going to beat that high score? What do I need to do to beat that high score? What polish do I need? What sounds do I need? What's enough? And normally, if I hadn't been asking myself those questions, normally I would have bailed on this project much sooner. I would have just said, okay, this is good enough to get across the idea of what I want to do. And I realize now that I have been hurting myself in doing that. I'm always releasing things too early and not putting enough time and effort into the polish so that I get the reactions and the energy from those types of reactions that I need to carry something forward. Not that I ever really posted too much to begin with, but the things that I did, my reactions were so low that I had never had the momentum or motivation to keep them going. And it was on me. It was my own fault. The ideas can be there. You can have the best idea in the world, but if it looks like ass, nobody's going to react, even if they can potentially see your vision without you actually sharing it with them to begin with, right? So this was a huge lesson learned for me, and something that I think for sure I'm going to take forward into series 3, which is, what is my current bar? What do I need to do to get above that? And so we're just going to go with this high score after 48 hours, because everything basically dies off after about 48 hours, 48 hours, is once I have that new high score established, then the next post, I'm going to be shooting to hit above that and doing whatever it takes to get to that or above it, right? And so that's just a really great sort of stair-stepping strategy on self-improvement, is to try and beat what we've done before. And it actually makes it really easy to know exactly what it is that I need to do. So pretty eye-opening for me overall, and look forward to playing around with that some more. All right, and so I think that is it for Nightcrawler. Now, what's next is a discussion about Rhoda. Rhoda has had quite the journey, and it is coming to an end, sadly. So, as I get to this project, I've had a couple weeks just kind of mull over some ideas, but nothing has come to me. The idea of demonstrating a card rotation mechanic with units coming off of it just does not seem interesting to me, and I don't think I would solicit a lot of reactions without something spectacular happening. And with cutting all the other content that that mechanic could interact with, such as other enemy units and other buildings and structures and things, it's just not there. So I think that it's either the wrong mechanic, or in and of itself it's like a running mechanic in a game. It's just not exciting by itself until you've added a bunch of other things, like things to jump and double jump and all that kind of stuff. So I'll have to take this one away, think about it a little bit, but it's had quite the journey, going from a full game to, and me realizing that I've gone down the wrong path, and that I'm looking for a simple mechanic, a simple toy idea to demo. And that brought me to a thin slice, super small, but I still had a bunch of external things going on in terms of what the card was going to attack and things. And so I did really good in sort of trimming this down. And now it's to zero. Like if I just add another node here, I can bring this down to zero. And this is a really good thing. This is me realizing that an idea is not worth the time. And so Rhoda is sadly on its way to the graveyard. Maybe at some point, if a fresh new idea pops into my head about how we can make this fun, we'll dig it back up, play around with it some more. But until then, that is all she wrote.